not being coiled and wrapped at the end.
Yeah.
So when I'm trying to make that final push,
see, and I
somehow managed to be for that stupid one I fouled at Penryn.
Oh
right.
Still mad about.
I'm pretty sure that was a 60-foot.
Yeah, it was a 60-foot one turn, and it never got marked, and it's just gone.
But what you said was kind of perfect there, because that is the two types of throwers. You have guys that have fast feet and no coil, and guys that can coil but are slow because they're coiled. And so if you're a coiling athlete, you need faster feet. And if you have fast feet, you need to get coiled. And that's the, there it is.
There's the crux.
Right.
So, one turn, the people have requested to know drills. And I just explained this, so I feel really silly, but that's all this podcast is, me feeling silly. We are going to go over really just what we think the best drills are for each event. We got asked this question several ways of what is the best for new throwers, or what is the best if you have a time crunch. And the answer really ends up being the same either way. Good drills are good drills, no matter what. A drill isn't what's going to push you from a 49-foot open stone to a 50-foot open stone. That's something else. So these are just good drills for anyone to do. If you're a new thrower, just listen harder. Turn the volume up. We still have Jerry Witzman with us. We just finished his regular episode, but he is going to be our honorable guest on this one turn because Jerry's a fantastic coach. So you have Jeremy, you have Matt, and you have Jerry.
Hello. Hey.
Ta-da. Look at that. All right, we are going to go traditional order because it makes the most sense, and we're going to talk about stones first. These are not necessarily specific. Well, they are in a sense because you're not going to do some of the drills we talk about for Braemar, but in general, we're going to talk about stones.
Do you want to just... I know we have notes on this one for once, but do you want to actually just say your favorite, my favorite, his favorite, and we just go that way on all of them?
We could do that.
Like, we have a cheat sheet, but we could just go off script on this. This is the one where it makes sense.
We finally said, hey, let's write down our ideas to make sure our podcast
Let's be organized.
let's start putting effort in. We finally have a logo that's real. Let's try. And then Matt's immediate thought was, let's abandon that. Let's go rogue. He said the thing. You have to drink. All right. Then let's do that. Let's just go round table.
Sure.
We'll go... I was going to say clockwise, but this is not a visual medium. No one knows what we're doing. All right, I'll just go first. A drill for stones in general, I do like toe to board. I know it's the first thing we wrote down. But I love that as a drill and also my way to warm up throwing. Because one of my problems is staying wrapped, and that drill hits heavily on it. So I guess we should describe what these drills are for new throwers. I forget what I'm doing here sometimes, folks. A toe to board is exactly what it sounds like. You're going to put both of your toes at the trig. You were just facing straight into the sector. You tuck the stone or the shot or whatever you're practicing with, and you're just going to wrap yourself up to your right if you're a right-handed thrower, left if you're left, and then uncoil and push it out in front of the trig. It doesn't have to be incredibly high effort. It can be. I know Mike Beach has been a proponent of there should be days where you track your drills, and I don't have a problem with that at all, but I also think there are days where you should just go in there and look for a feeling. So I'll leave that up to you guys to structure your training however is best. But I really like working on that feeling wrapped and then feeling my left shoulder coming around and doing what it's supposed to, and feeling reaching beyond the trig. Because it's such a modified drill, if I step over the toe board or the trig at the end, it doesn't matter. I just want to feel what I'm supposed to feel when I'm throwing a toe to board. So I really like that one, both as a warm-up and as an actual functional drill to get you better at throwing. And you can do it with a heavy stone, you can do it with a light stone. Or shot, whatever you're practicing with, which I have also become a big enjoyer of practicing with a shot. That's actually been really fun.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
Matt.
absolutely. I think probably my favorite shot drill is actually just flicking the stone off your hand. So, like, standing up, over a stone and tucking it in. If you're a right-handed thrower, you'd use your left hand to lift it up to your right hand, and your right hand's at about, breast level, and just pushing down straight into the ground and feeling the flick off of your fingers.
Really breaking all your toes.
Yeah, it's especially for a natural stone, where if you've never touched the stone before, you don't know how it's going to come off the hand, you don't know if you're going to be able to tuck it right. You can take 15 or 20 of these in a minute real quick, or a minute and a half, while everyone else is still putting on their shoes, and understand the way the stone feels and get used to how you're going to be able to get into position so that you can get that flick on the end of it. With a open stone, this might make a 4 or 5 foot difference on your farther throws, just being able to actually feel the stone. On your Braemar, it can make or break me for being able to tuck a stone. So, because it all comes down to just pushing and flicking. So I really like that one. You can even do this sitting on a bench. I used to do this as part of my warm-up in track and field, is just grabbing my shot and sitting there. You know, you're going to have nervous energy, like getting your nervous energy out on something that is productive.
That's
All right.
really cool. Yeah, one of my favorites is the toe to board. And I'll take a few with both toes to the board, do the coil, get a little bit of a knee pop, but then I will advance that, take a few throws take my right foot back as a right-handed thrower, drop it back, say 6 to 8 inches, and take a couple more that way. So now I'm actually starting to incorporate the lower body even more until I eventually get into a full power position. So I'll use that as a progression, starting with the toe to board, 3 to 5 throws there, 6 to 8 inches back with the right foot, 6 to 8 inches back further with another 3 to 5 throws, 6 to 8 inches back until finally I'm in a full power position, and now I'm starting to do full non-reversing throws.
I like that. I think Mike Beach has a video on those and he calls them quarter step throws, where instead of taking your full step, you're working back a quarter of the distance. So good addition.
It's like starting with the release, right?
Yeah.
It's practicing that, and then you're working from the top down. Meanwhile, when we're teaching it, we're usually always teaching it as a chain reaction from the ground up.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, getting people to get in touch with that a little more is definitely good.
Yep. Open stone.
Yeah, so then if we get into all of those will work for your heavy stone and your light stone. But you have someone here who glides, someone here who rotates, and someone who's done it for 15 years in the games. So, me as a glider, as much as I hate this drill, it is probably the most useful is A-frame drills or A drills, however you refer to them, where you're actually starting with your eggs. Do whatever you want with your eggs. It's your body, your choice. Start with your legs in an A, and then you're trying to pull your right foot quickly underneath of your right hip into a good position, and then throwing. I should do more of this because it's what I'm bad at, and when I do it well is when I have thrown stones well, ironically enough. So, as far as to get you functionally better as a glider, you definitely should do more A-frame drills. As much as they are uncomfortable, that's the reason they exist.
Yeah, and this is a really normal track and field drill, so you'll be able to look this one up on Google Images, and as long as you put shot put after it, you'll be able to find that one. For me, as someone that does as a rotational thrower that actually starts facing away from the trig, so I do the full Olympic shot put style spin. I really like either the wheel or mirror drill, but more than that, I like the decathlete glide. So the finish of your throw either way is pretty similar. I really like finishing more like a glider though than a rotational thrower. So I still try to punch through at the end and get my right shoulder very far over the toe board, and then I kind of just pray that I can hook on to the toe board to actually stay in rather than scratch. So a decathlon glide is instead of coming off of, if you're a right-handed thrower, instead of coming off of your right foot into a glide, you come off of your left. And so what that's going to do for you is it's going to let you feel getting your hips a little bit more rotational, because you are pushing off with your left hip that needs to swing in front of you. But it also still lets you punch through the finish like you would on a glide throw. So it's kind of, you can use that actually for a glider also. And for a lot of guys that don't have the coordination to start gliding, it's basically one step better than a shuffle. So you're still getting low, you still have all the benefits of a glide. It's just a little bit less technically challenging.
Is that similar to what they also call switchfoot?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
That's what I had been referred to as.
Yeah, I started doing them about a month ago, and I like them for the purpose of feeling the stretch reflex on my left side.
Right, yeah.
And actually feeling that open up, because it was an area I was shortchanging myself in my glide, and having a drill where I'm opening on the left side and feeling that before I start pushing was very helpful. I did them for about a week before I went to Mountain State.
No, you had a good showing at Mountain State.
Yeah,
it was good.
Okay. I think it got better.
Yeah.
and then Penryn.
You really
I like the A-frame glide that Jeremy was discussing. My key on that one is that when I'm in the A-frame and I go to kind of, I guess, push my hips forward, I get my right foot to turn at least 90 degrees so that my knee and toes are under me. Mm-hmm. And then that way I can actually get my leg and hip to punch through. Yeah. But cueing that to punch through first before I have my shoulders come around, if my shoulders are neutral to my hips, well, then I'm not going to get any time with the implement to be able to throw it well. So I've still got to keep that right shoulder back and stay coiled while that leg is getting under me to drive.
And if that's your issue, the 1-2 drill is basically that without the A-frame preceding it, where you stand with your feet where they would be in the power position. You 1, turn your ankle, 2, turn your hip, and then you throw, and you're breaking it up into pieces that you can then try and put together at speed. So, all right, good. We've covered stone.
Yeah.
Sweet. Matt, as a former competitive shot put thrower, is there anything else you think people should know before we move on to weights? Like, if you were to gear this toward new throwers, because that's where most of our
the natural stone is completely different than a shot.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So, absolutely, and that would be unless you have someone that is teaching you how to rotate, glide, or shuffle, don't bother. Like, you should just be power throwing. If you're on unfamiliar footing, just power throw. You need to get your power throw stronger, and you need to feel comfortable in that position before you ever progress beyond that. So, like, if you can't even power throw consistently, you're not going to be able to learn to glide or rotate with any added benefit. You're going to use 2 or 3 times the energy to throw 3 inches farther, and that's going to ruin you for every other event. So,
and the whole point of the glide or the rotation is to get you into that power position.
You have to
with
understand.
some momentum, right?
Yeah, and if you're looking at your numbers and your Braemar is only a foot shy of your open stone power throw, you are missing something somewhere. You either don't have a fundamental level of strength or technique or both, and you really should hammer your power throws. And there needs to be a decent gap before you then start moving. And you may not see an appreciable gain at first because it's a new movement, but yes.
Yeah, I'll take a mental note of them with cones. Set up cones in 5-foot increments, and I'll know that, okay, like going back to the toe board ones, my toes to the board, I'm in the first 5-foot section. Then by the time I've dropped my feet back, 8 to 16 inches, I should be in the next 5-foot section.
Right.
And then by full power position, I should be in the next 5-foot section.
Yeah.
So kind of keeping track of that helps.
To wrap up stones here, another thing to consider is that for everything else, we should be looking at Highland Games athletes because they are the best at what we're doing in this specific field. When you're looking at open stones, watch track and field athletes, right? That's where you're going to find your best gliders. That's where you're going to find your best rotational throwers. There are people out there whose entire careers, professions, livelihoods come from specifically the shot put, right? So look up Throws University, look up Garage Strength, look up Arete Throws Nation, just watch Olympic throwers' YouTube videos and see what they're doing on the shot, and you're going to have a million drills even in the power throw. So that's...
Can I throw like Ryan by watching just one of his videos?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Better
100%.
Is that how it works?
Yeah, he's too tall to throw well.
Change your name to Krauser, and then you'll just be better.
I mean, there are like 9 of them that have gone to the Olympics, so...
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
Have a baby with one of them. Ladies, if you're listening, and go for it. There aren't that many women that listen. I've seen the analytics.
Right.
All right, moving on to weights. Heavyweight. I'll take first again, and I actually won't take what's listed as number 1 or 2. I'm going to go with something that's technically not a drill, and I'm going to go ahead and call underweight implements. I'm going to say that has been really helpful. If you throw in the open men's, and this may not be as useful for new throwers because you need to get your time in with a 56. It is going to be uncomfortable. But if you start throwing a 48 or 42, you're not actually going to get as much out of it. But once you've thrown a game or two, grab a 42 or a 48 or some underweighted implement, and it is going to be fantastic because you can work through all the other drills that Matt and Jerry are about to cover, but you can do it 10 times more because you aren't beat to crap and your hand isn't falling apart and your back doesn't hurt. So underweight implements for the heavyweight is a big plus.
Yeah, I'll add to that and actually say overweight implements also, even on the heavyweight. I mean, there's times.
You shut your mouth.
There's times in my training where I will.
This is a strong man talking.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll put an extra 10-pound plate on my 56 so that I can really feel it drag behind me, and so that it kicks my ass again, right? Because I want to feel it drag me across and to see where I'm off balance, right? So over and underweight implements on the heavyweight, because it's got to start to feel light to you. If the heavyweight always feels heavy, it's never going to go far, right? You have to get to a point where when you pick it up, it feels light, and part of that comes from strength training. So like unilateral farmer's carries or suitcase carries, I guess is what they call them. You know, you start to walk with 200 pounds in a hand, or 300 pounds, or 400 pounds per hand in just one of them. A 56 is going to start to feel light for you. But yeah, as far as drills go, a one turn, but with the preface that it needs to be in the position that you are landing in a two turn. If you're doing
It should be your sprint portion of the throw.
The sprint drill.
It has to carry over. If you are doing something different, if you're getting extra, if you are setting up different than how you're going to land, it means nothing, right? It's an entirely different throw at that point. So you have to actually be taking the time to get into that position, see where you're landing, and think about it as an extension of the full throw.
Jerry? Yeah, heavyweight. Jerry, favorite heavyweight drill?
Single turns, but in the sprint drill. With the 56, it does get difficult to be able to move it by itself. So that's the whole point of doing a two-turn, is to progressively accelerate the weight as you move closer to the trig for the actual throw. But the sprint drill has been the most effective one for me. And I'll even do those underweight and do them where it might only go 5 feet. Like as soon as I get into that power position and want to release, that way I'm not wearing myself out and I can get some more reps in because I'm focusing on my turn, focusing on my casting, focusing on landing, all of the other aspects of the drill. It's not everything has to go far every time you throw it.
Correct. We touched on that earlier because when Matt and I were making this list, we talked about cast and drops. I'm not a fan of a cast and drop where you drive it into the ground behind the trig. I like to lackadaisically let it come off to the right instead of driving it down. But cast and drops are nice for that same sort of reason of focusing on the turn. Our honorable mention goes to power throwing the heavyweight. But we discussed this and we realized that there are a lot of new throwers listening to this, and you may not actually get something out of just power throwing a 56-pound weight. You may not be able to yet. That being said, if you do have some experience throwing and you are halfway strong and you've been debating working it in, I'd say it's worth time to give it a shot, because that is going to be my favorite drill for lightweight here in a minute. I'm going to segue that and say power throw your lightweight for distance, and that is a fantastic drill and something, again, that I typically use. Ooh, that's a big bug. Look at that.
Isn't it cool?
Did you find that outside? Guys, I'm not even going to edit this out. We got a cool looking rhino beetle or dung beetle.
It looks like a rhino beetle.
Yeah, it's huge. That's dope. You don't see a lot of those in Virginia. You don't see a lot of those around here.
It's huge. It was like 2 inches long.
Yeah. I mean, that looks like a 6-inch beetle to me. So, all right, welcome to Bug Corner, guys. This podcast is shifting. We're here to talk about bugs.
This is sponsored
That's
by
really neat.
Rhino
I saw
Beetle.
Haley's head rising up the stairs, and she goes, "I found something." It's like, "Oh, come here."
Yeah, this is worth stopping for. I'm not even going to edit it out. You should preserve that in epoxy or something like that.
Oh,
And then
I know
And
my
put
daughter.
some Febreze on it.
I know Silka would do something with it. She does. She's got her Instagram of Magically Created.
yeah, I recognize
Where
a
she
lot of
makes-
those bones.
Yeah, she makes dead things pretty.
Yeah, it's in the bone.
Very
I love that you're quoting Ace Ventura or Cordell without ever seeing the movie. I've done my job well. All right.
All right, so power throws with a lightweight.
Yes, power throws with the lightweight are almost as cool as giant beetles. Because it is lighter and more people can do that, so I would say new throwers, if you try and do that and it feels bad, that just means you need to do it more often, where that may not be the case with the heavyweight. It's how I warm up for almost all of my lightweight practices at this point, and like Jerry said earlier, this is one where I'm not tracking distance. I know what my warm-up throws should go relatively, and as long as I'm seeing it fall out in that region, I'm cool with it. I'm just trying to feel what I'm supposed to feel when I finish the lightweight. So I really enjoy power throwing it.
So I don't know what the name for this is, but something I have found.
We're going to call it the McDougal if no one else has a name for it.
Is tremendously beneficial for me is taking time to sweep out the back more, right? So I will intentionally just do that and overemphasize or exaggerate getting the weight low behind my back right foot in the back of the lightweight throw, and then I will drive the weight straight up in front of me, and I will just do that. And I will throw from that position sometimes, but it's not so much a one turn as it is
it's only your cast portion.
Yeah, it's
without
only
moving your feet.
yeah,
You're literally casting the weight in front
correct.
of you.
I'm throwing from a cast, basically. And they don't go any amount of distance, but I can feel the weight getting very low and very far away from me so that I can actually drive. So it's setting up myself to go into a one turn from there.
It's almost similar to
It's very similar to your
Totem
power.
or that. Yeah, it's kind
Well,
of
it's very
merged
similar
between
to
the
your.
two.
Yeah.
Well, are your feet parallel to the trig, or your feet perpendicular to the trig?
His aren't because he's
when
goofy.
you do it.
Right, yeah. So I'm lining up with my left foot in front of my right foot when I do that.
Okay, so that's perpendicular to
Right.
the trig. So it's like you're starting off into the sprint drill.
It is very, yeah, exactly. It's
So
very
which
similar.
is similar to being in Jeremy, what he's talking about with the power position throw. The only difference is you just have two different focal points,
Right.
Yep.
right? Your focal point is
low
behind you, having the low point and being able to push it and keep the biggest, longest radius orbit you can,
Right.
and focus on that. And Jeremy's is trying to focus on getting that sweep on a release.
Yep.
Which is an interesting thing to bring up, because one of the things that we get accomplished by focusing on drills or cues like this is what that actually does for me is it gets my knees bent, right? And so I could say the same thing by start with a deeper knee bend position in the back, and I would accomplish the same thing. But for me, the way that I get my knees down is by not thinking about my creaky knees. It's about thinking about getting the weight low and behind me. And so
Whereas
that
for
lets
me, it's about thinking about my lower body moving instead of the weight. I do better on lightweight when I ignore the lightweight.
Right.
Yep.
So-
I get the lightweight to go behind me. I like the combination of what you guys were doing. I do the sprint drill as my favorite one because I can focus on casting it behind me, getting that low point, getting a big orbit, being able to actually drive in my sprint so that I can get into the power position.
I mean,
for
that's
the
your
release.
moneymaker in a
It
lightweight is
It
driving forward.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So, 100%. I think it's really fun to listen to Matt and I talk, and you guys may or may not agree with this, but from the fact that we both are trying to accomplish the same thing, but we do it differently, but we both do it objectively okay, I've really enjoyed being able to articulate that, because we had this conversation before the episode started too about cues for the lightweight, for the heavyweight, and for me, I like knees together, and Matt likes ankles together, because we are accomplishing similar goals, but because we move differently. It's just interesting. I think if anyone was going to get any value out of this, I like that you guys are actually getting two different viewpoints on accomplishing the same thing, because you may hear me say a cue and it may not click, and then Matt says his and it does, or vice versa. So, Venmo me two. No, I'm just kidding. Every time you agree with me and not Matt, you pay me $1.
What was it? Kilted Gorilla?
Yeah. No, but I think that's a fun thing to point out, because I like that we're doing that. All right, hammers. I'll take my favorite throwback. That's my favorite drill, is the throwback. So this is what got my hammers up finally, because I am still not a speedy hammer thrower. I am capitalizing on leverage and length. So what I really like doing to describe this as best I can, Mike Beach has a video on it. It does better than I'm going to do it right now. I'm a dynamic starter. It doesn't matter whether you're starting pulling off the ground or not. But you're taking it from your low point behind you, however you had it there. You're throwing it almost hip to navel level in front of your left hip for a right-handed thrower, and then pulling it straight behind your left shoulder. Reverse everything I'm saying if you're wrong-handed. But
Wrong-handed. Left-handed people are the only ones in their right minds.
good for them.
Yeah.
They'll never be president. So you're going to take it, throw it in front of your left hip or slightly higher depending on your leverages, and then pull it straight behind your left shoulder and let it go. And what you should be doing is creating a straight line from your hip to behind your head, and when you turn around, that hammer should have gone directly behind you. And that is how you know you're doing the drill well. And that is teaching you to actually push your shoulders through so you can catch that hammer on the right side and start on the correct foot. And that being in a good position from the start is way better than anyone who's ever tried to correct a hammer halfway through a throw. So I like that drill for starting well. I think it's a good one to, whether you're going to do a 1 turn, a 2 turn, a 3 turn, however many turns you do in your throw, if you're not starting well, it's going to go poorly. And man, I can't say enough good things about that drill. And I hope I described it halfway well just now so you guys can at least know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Hammers for me, and this is going to be the same heavy and light hammer. I don't throw them any differently.
Correct for me as well. I think we made that difference earlier, that hammers are one of those where the weight doesn't make a difference in your drills.
So there are 2 for me that come to mind. And the first one is I will take the hammer and I will put it up high above me, like in a corner where the head of it is actually resting on something, and I will grab the end of that hammer and I will rotate my body around, if that makes sense to you guys. If I can make it make sense to you guys, I can make it make sense to anyone. So like if
You're
I will
coiling
put
yourself up.
I will put the head of the hammer in a door frame, right? So like in the top corner of it, and I will
Over your right shoulder or left?
both, and then I will actually feel myself twisting through and pulling on it.
Oh, okay.
So I can feel it above me, because I can't slow down that portion of the throw to actually feel what I should be feeling.
So to articulate that to people, Matt just made a motion almost like as if he grabbed the top of a power rack and stretched his upper body out with his hands together.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Like,
I could do this with a rope too. If you had a rope hanging, then you could grab the rope and start leaning against it and feeling how your hand should be over your head, and then you could actually pull down on it so that you can start to feel your lat engagement on the swing down and on the swing up, right?
And is it in front of you or behind you?
Behind me when I'm doing this.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's almost like if you were to pause a throw when someone's catching it over their left shoulder, that's the position that you're emulating.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I can't slow that down with an actual hammer in my hand.
No, because gravity
you
takes a
can't,
hold and it's going
right.
to fall one way or the other.
Yep. Yeah, so that's been a big one for me, because I always struggled with feeling the swing down. I could yank it when it was in front of me, because that feels like a power clean. But the act of accelerating from above me to below me has always been something that has eluded me. And as soon as I figured that out, I PR'd my heavy hammer by 8 feet, my light by 7. So in the course of 2 weeks, actually, once I was able to feel those positioning. And then the other one is accentuating the finish of the throw by actually driving harder off my left foot to the point that I'm intentionally scratching. So taking my left foot, feeling the hammer line up, driving it back against it, and stepping over the board. So intentionally fouling through that, which, if you don't lift your foot up, then it's not an issue. But just finishing a throw, I think
the only caveat I would put on there is that if we have new throwers listening, probably don't intentionally foul.
Yes.
That's you're adding the final 2% to your throw. That is not hey, that's a drill you should do every day.
Now you're working on the fine motor skills.
If you have an intermediate to advanced thrower, then yes, start working on stuff like that. New throwers, I would say, be careful with that is all.
Yeah.
My favorite hammer winds for both heavy and light is going to just doing winds, and actually on both sides of the body. Like Jeremy was describing, I would consistently keep that back shoulder, catch it behind me, push it around to the front, let it throttle down a little bit, and then push it, and then catch it behind me and push it again. And I do that anywhere from 3 to 10 times on the right side, do 3 to 10 times on the left side. It really feels like a good stretch too. A nice warm up.
Yeah, and I don't have room to throw hammers where I live, but I'll use hammer winds as a general warm up before I go throw sheaf. There are plenty of hammer drills that you guys can go look up. We're going to try not to get too deep into them because this is a 1 turn, and the point is just give you a little bit of info. But hammer winds are great for that reason. You also don't need room to throw them. If you live somewhere where you don't have a 150-foot field to safely do this in, go find somewhere where you can just stand still and do winds.
There's different ways to accelerate your winds. Work on, say, a 1 turn, a 1 wind, 2 wind, 3 wind progression.
Yep.
And then I think Dan McKim was really good about this at doing working up to a 3 wind progression and then launching it into the ground on his right side.
Matt and I were talking about that one earlier. There's a million ways to vary your winds. You can make them overweight too. You can go buy some cheap little pig iron plates that fit perfectly over the Schedule 60 or 80 PVC, and you can overweight your hammer. if you want to actually get a little bit of work out of it. So there's great ways to do that.
Those are the others.
We didn't.
Well, there's, like for sheaf, there's a snatch drill.
Yeah, which we
But
were
we're on caber.
Yeah, all right. So caber, we're going traditional, Jerry. All right, caber drills. Once again, there's not exactly a ton of them, but pick and walks.
Yeah.
It'll fix so many issues. Whatever your issue is, spending more time walking around with a caber will likely fix it. Like,
Pick and
Others-
dumps. Even.
yeah.
Just
It's
if you have a
just-
problem with just
wait
picking.
your turn. It goes me, then Matt, then you.
Damn it, Jim.
I'm going to steal that one.
That's what you get for saying it early. So mine is pick and walks. Learning to be comfortable walking around with a tree in your hands is not a natural thing. So pick it up, walk around with it. Don't try to throw it. Don't try to do anything. Just set it down gently when you're done. And do that a bunch. Matt talked about it on a previous episode, how that was what got him feeling comfortable with caber, was just doing that 10 to 12 times every morning.
With his bear
Do
claw
it.
pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, with his functionally incorrect... No, just kidding. If it gets in your hands, it's not incorrect. I'll make fun of you, but it's not wrong.
Who
So,
has the best caber at the table?
arguably,
Turn the biggest caber at the table.
who can pick the biggest caber more often?
Yeah, but I get
Well, I
three.
haven't-
Yeah, when you do it wrong.
I haven't met a caber yet, even a pro level caber, that I haven't been able to pick.
Exactly.
Plenty of them that I can't turn.
I could pick them all.
Yeah. Well, okay,
I
so
picked that one. I picked that one. I picked no.
That
Wrong
actually
kind of
leads
pick.
into mine though, because I was going to say, cut down bigger trees than you can handle, right? So like
Oh, overweight implements.
overweight implements, right? Because get a tree. If your local Highland Games are throwing a 17-foot long caber, get a 22. If your local Highland Games are throwing an 80-pound caber, get a 100-pound caber.
For everyone sitting in their apartment right now listening to this, what's stopping you from owning a 22-foot caber? I don't see what your problem is. Chain it to the bike rack out front.
Right.
Confuse people.
Yeah.
Hanging off.
Become ungovernable.
Yeah. Just leave it in the park.
Said the man
behind
whose
tree
job
line.
it is to enforce the government.
Yeah.
Put it in its own parking spot.
Jerry, caber drill.
Caber drill.
Finally, your turn.
Yeah, pick and dumps. But being able to just have different sizes available to you really helps. Even starting with a 10-foot. I remember when Liesel would first start throwing, I got her just an 8-foot fence post.
Yep.
And that's what she started with.
Yeah, the pick is the most uncomfortable part, especially for new throwers.
Especially for a traditional pick. Using all three
Yes.
points of contact, paying attention to it, literally popping it with purpose, and then getting your hands under it and catching it very gently.
It requires a level of commitment that, if you've never held a tree before, is very hard to come in with. So working your way up from literally buying a round cedar fence post and then moving up.
The other one I like is, and I learned this one from Pokoski.
It was one per... No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
From Pokoski's training was that he would just pick and run, and just outrun the caber and just let it dump behind him.
I was actually going to bring that one up.
Yeah, if you
Yeah,
hate your
that's-
collarbone,
Mind. Yeah.
that's-
do that if you can do it safely.
Yeah, but that's actually another one for caber where I didn't like most of the stuff that was in the contrarian, but their way that they approach the caber of like, all right, I'm going to pull it while it's straight up and down. All right, I'm going to let it fall 1 inch and pull it. All right, I'm going to let it fall 10 degrees and pull it. And seeing where they could and couldn't get away with pulling on the caber, seeing where they could and couldn't get away with accelerating the caber. That was an awesome breakdown, I think, because it's an event that I think a lot of people just kind of ignore, and they say, well, I'm either good or I'm not good at it, but like it can be broken down the same way as every other caber or every other event.
But if they pull too early, it ends up becoming a javelin. Or if they don't finish with their follow through with their hands behind their head,
Right.
It
I need to rewatch
changes the
that
pivot
video.
point.
I haven't watched that since you and I watched it at your house like 3 years ago.
I've digitized it, but I won't send it to you because that's illegal. So I don't know why I even brought
Yes.
that up.
He would never even digitize it. That was satire.
Yeah.
All right. Caber sheaf?
Chief.
Sheaf. Bottoms up drills. They're fantastic, regardless of what your throwing style is, whether you're a drive and pull or a reach and rip thrower. Bottoms up drills are great. It should be similar to your one turn, in my opinion, for your weights, if I had to equate it to something. Your one turn distance ultimately shouldn't be that far off of your two turn. Your bottom up drill ultimately shouldn't end up that far off from your full sheaf throw. And everything in that is to scale. If you're a 30-foot plus sheaf thrower, I'm not surprised if your bottoms up only gets you 24. But if you're a 20-foot sheaf thrower, I do expect your bottom up to be 17 to 18 feet. Like, I expect that to be much closer. So, do your bottom up drill to, again, we forgot to do this for some of the other ones because caber's kind of self-explanatory. You are placing the bag and fork if you're throwing off your left side, the typical right-handed thrower method, you are placing the bag off your right foot by 6 inches to 10 inches, depending on your levers, applying force, and then simply pulling up. There's no actual backswing. You have the bag on the ground and your fork fully in it, and you pull from there. That is a bottom-up drill.
Also
Go do
referred to as a snatch.
Yeah, if you're Jerry. He's the only person I've ever heard call that, but yeah.
Yeah, to add to that, something that you should be searching for in that drill, one of the feelings that I've always known that I have it in the right position on my full throw, and so what I search for in the bottoms up drill, or whatever you want to call it, I always called it a bottoms up drill, so I don't, anyway. In that
I'm the
drill-
only oddball guy.
Yeah.
Well, we're new and we don't know what we're talking
You're not
about,
invited
so-
back for the next one.
Right. Don't ever contradict me again. But is that feeling of my lat stretch of the hand that is on the forkhead, because that's what I'm trying to search for, and what I'm trying to find when I'm actually throwing is feeling the stretch reflex in my body, because it's such a short pull that you have to be finding as much stretch reflex as you can. But yeah, I think my favorite drill for the sheaf is actually just throwing with both arms. I don't think that and that's honestly true for most of the throws, but I think especially for something that's going to be so hard on your side delts and your shoulder and on your lats and on your biceps, like it is an incredibly violent motion to not be using both arms.
Not if you throw it slow like I do.
Right. It can be an incredibly violent motion.
It should be.
And you get so much more out of motor learning when you're going to both sides. So, like, taking the time to just, like, if you're
Maybe I
left,
should do that.
right? If one shoulder is starting to feel janky, stop using it, right? Don't end up like a lot of the throwers we know that should be throwing pro numbers that aren't because they're constantly
Or
hurt.
should be lightweights,
Right.
but aren't.
Yeah. Or Jordan Petty, but
Yeah, just don't be like Jordan Petty.
just don't be anything like.
I know you may look at him in Nazca and go, I should emulate that guy. Don't.
Don't. Sure.
I haven't met Jordan Patty yet, so I'm not going to get in there.
No. Take a hard stance. To stay on this podcast, I need you to take a hard stance on Jordan Petty right now. Lay it out. Haley, for or against Jordan Petty?
I love Jordan Patty.
Damn it.
All right, I'm going to be with Haley.
Damn it, now we're tied. All right, whatever. Jerry, sheaf drills.
Sheaf drills, I don't really do a lot of drills on that. I will do a bottoms up, but I will focus on just repetition of the same movement. If I'm working on a drive, then I'll focus on making sure that I get that stretch reflex in my backswing and being able to drive it all the way through the entire motion, because it's not only pulling the bag, I'm also trying to push the bag. So I feel like it's a combination of both movements.
Yep. I dig it. All right, weight over bar. Again, there aren't a ton of drills out there for this. I am a big fan of the water bottle drill. This is one of the few events where I will help you if you send me a video, because I think it's one of the few events I'm actually technically good at from a technical perspective. But for the bottoms up drill, you're going to place a water bottle that's partially full so it doesn't blow over in between your heels, and you are going to, when you come back, not hit the bottle, and on your way out, you are going to hit the bottle. And you can change this up however you want. If your problem is not going in high enough, get a 1 liter bottle that's taller. If your problem is not going out low enough, get one of those little baby bottles and put that on the ground, because it's going to teach you when to hit it and when not to, so you are making sure your entry is high and your exit is low. So I think it's very good for teaching that portion of weight over bar, which is honestly, again, it's kind of where you 50-50. You make your money on the pull and you make it on the backswing, but it's a good half of the throw that if you don't have down, you're shortchanging yourself. So I think it's a very good drill.
I'm going to take a completely different stance on this one.
Okay.
Now that I've been thinking about it, I think the best wob drill you could possibly do is.
This wasn't best drills. We're just saying what we like. Why has it got to be a competition?
I think the absolute best, non-debatable drill you can do for wob is actually a strength movement, which is a narrow grip sumo stance high pull, right? Because like there's a lot of positioning things that you can do for the wob, but you also just have to be strong. So I think that my cue is
So your drill is to be stronger?
yeah, my drill is just to be stronger.
No crap.
So just throw higher.
Yeah, that also carries over for K-Bird, by the way. But I don't really have a good drill for wob. I've thrown 15.
I
since
only
got
know
into the
of
game, so I
2,
don't know.
and I've thrown 13. But
Right.
at the same time, I only know of 2 wob drills.
Yeah.
So if I had to pick a favorite out of that, it's a water bottle.
I say my least favorite wob drill is anything rotational. Don't
yeah.
do that.
Spin to win is a lie, folks. This podcast
It's
will
not real.
forever preach that. And if Jerry says spinning after this, I'm cutting his mic. Jerry?
Spin it to win it. No, I'm just kidding. So, no, I like the water bottle drill because it really helps me focus on sitting down after the weight has gone under me and behind me, sitting on it as it comes out, so that I can then explode in the snatch on the up.
Sit in it to explode on the snatch, ladies and gentlemen. The only other drill, since we kind of just mainly harped on one, if you are having issues in your timing in the back, go in high and then just sit and let the weight fall back behind you. Don't even pull. Just literally reach as far back as you can, sit down with it until the weight just hits the ground, quote unquote, gingerly. It's still 56 pounds. But that's really the only other drill I'm aware of for weight over bar. I'm sure there are others out there.
That's the teaching the patience part of it, because
Yes.
people tend to pull way early.
You start pulling early and
The weight's
it's hard
going
to
backwards
feel
and
it
you're trying to
happening as
pull it
much,
up.
but someone will watch you, and it's like watching a chain that was slack suddenly become tight, and it's painful to watch. But if you're analyzing your throws videos and you notice yourself doing that, that's a good drill for teaching patience in the back part of it.
Yeah, honestly, just a backswing, that is something that is a relevant
Yes.
drill for the wob, because I see a lot of people let the implement get slack, right? They don't keep constant tension on it, and that kills you. So whatever you need to do to keep constant tension, whether it's just throwing it behind you and feeling it, or maintaining constant contact with it, whatever drill you can find to feel that feeling so it never comes out of... what's the right word here? So it's always in constant tension.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah, and what I will say to that point is you don't have to finish all of your wob pulls. It is practice. You don't need to throw over a bar every single time. Maybe you do because of individual reasons, but as a general rule of thumb, you don't need to sit here and pull the 56 15 times and wear your back out. You can literally just do a full throw, quote unquote, without throwing it. You can let it go in front of you. It doesn't matter. And that brings me to the last point that I tried to make a note of so I wouldn't forget it. And this applies to everything. And it's something we've kind of touched on, but varying intensity. Practice is practice. There's nothing wrong with having a 50% day, a 60% day, a 70 and 80 and so on, or having all those in the same practice, saying that, hey, I'm going to do power throws at 50%, and then I'm going to try and hit them at 70%, and then I'm going to have a couple where I really go for it. That is a very good tool that can be applied across just about every throw shy of caber.
Yeah.
Caber is really the only thing where you can't short intensity because you're going to drop a tree on yourself. But all other 8 events you can throw with varying levels of intensity in order to get your training where it should be, to help you feel positions or to help you get reps in and build motor patterns. Either way you want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another important thing to think about for practice, not just completely slipped my mind. There we go. It's gone.
Get stronger.
Yeah.
Is that what you were going to
No.
say?
I had something actually.
Narrow grip sumo snatch high pull GHR. Good mornings. Tren. Let's talk now.
Yeah. So one of the things that we'll do in practice a lot when it comes to the drills we're doing is like we won't actually take 2-turn weight throws until we've hit a benchmark throw with our 1-turns, right? So like if Jeremy isn't throwing his 1-turns 55 feet, he's not gonna, in the lightweight, he's not gonna bother throwing a 2-turn because he still is messing something up, right? So we try to break it down until we are throwing the numbers that we know we should be throwing out of the drills consistently before approaching the next part of the movement.
Which is one of those other things where I would just say it's going to be harder for a new thrower to gauge, but it's not a bad way to look at it. If you're a new thrower, I would say, and don't have a game in the next month, then start doing that.
Right.
If you're a new thrower and you have a game coming up soon, please just go throw.
Yeah. I think probably a good rule of thumb is like a 5 to 10%, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if your full throw isn't 5 to 10% farther than a 1 turn on the weights,
Don't do it.
don't do it. If
You're drilling a bad motor
Right.
pattern at that point, something is wrong with your 2-turn,
Right.
and there's no reason to keep repeating it, and you'll have something more to fix
Yeah.
when you actually get better at it.
if you're grip and ripping hammers, X feet, and you're adding a rotation, you're only doing X and 10% or X and 1%. There's something wrong, and you have to fix that, right? So like know where it's starting to break down, which is what Beach was talking about. It is good to know where your drills are going, because without that, we are just kind of shooting in the dark.
Yep, I think there's an argument to be made for both. I think both for tracking drills and for having days without the tape.
Yeah.
And I think we're not your coach. You're not paying us. This is a free podcast. So be adults and figure it out. Fair? Is that how we're ending this? Where I yell at everyone and tell them to be adults?
Crinkling sound.
He's crinkling.
I'm crinkling,
Yeah.
which is really good for audio on a
Right.
podcast. So, bye.